40 days in the wilderness, led there, not by accident, not by misfortune, but by spirit. Most believe it was about hunger. It was not. It was about mastery. It was about becoming empty enough to hear something greater than appetite. It was about discovering what truly sustains a man when comfort is removed. When Christ entered the wilderness, he did not go to suffer. He went to confront. The tempter came when he was hungry, not when he was strong, not when he was celebrated, but when the body was weak and the desert was silent. Temptation does not arrive when life is loud. It comes in stillness. It whispers, "If you are." That question has never changed. Command these stones to become bread. Feed yourself. Prove yourself. Satisfy what the senses demand. React to what you see. But the answer was clear. Man shall not live by bread alone. Man does not live by what he sees. He lives by what he accepts as true within. Bread represents evidence, conditions, the visible world. But there is another source of life, the word within. And whatever word you dwell upon becomes flesh. What you persist in internally eventually hardens into experience externally. True fasting is not the denial of food. It is the denial of the old state. It is mental abstinence, the refusal to feast on fear, on lack, on doubt. It is the discipline of withdrawing attention from what weakens you and giving it only to what strengthens you. Whatever you continually behold, you become. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The devil in the wilderness was not a creature of flame. It was suggestion. It was doubt speaking through thought. If you are the Son of God, prove it, demonstrate it, force a sign. But faith does not demand proof. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Fasting is remaining loyal to the unseen when the seen contradicts you. It is holding position internally, even when there is no confirmation externally. The second temptation was spectacle. Cast yourself down. Make the angels intervene. Show power publicly. But true authority does not perform for validation. It does not test God to soothe insecurity. It rests. It knows. It waits. Because the kingdom is not observed with eyes. It is within. And what is within must first be stabilized before it can be expressed without. The third temptation was dominion. All these kingdoms will be yours. Power without process. Glory without purification. Just bow. Just compromise. Just exchange identity for influence. But what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? To gain externally while surrendering internally is not victory. It is exile from your own integrity. 40 days is symbolic. 40 appears throughout Scripture, in wilderness, in rain, in transition. It represents passage from one state to another. It represents the period where the old identity weakens and the new one forms. Whenever you attempt to change within, there is a wilderness. Old thoughts resist. Old habits return. Old fears grow louder. This is the testing, not by God, but by your former self, demanding survival. Fasting means you stop giving power to appearances. You stop reacting to the outer world as though it is final. The outer world is yesterday's belief, old seed coming to harvest, and if you panic when you see it, you plant it again. Be still. Stillness is fasting. Refusal to react is fasting. Emotional discipline is fasting. Most people try to change their lives while still feeding the old identity. They speak abundance, but dwell on debt. They desire love, but rehearse rejection. They pray for freedom, but meditate on bondage. They fast from bread, yet feast on anxiety. And what you feed must live. Attention is nourishment. Emotion is energy. Reaction is reinforcement. The wilderness strips you. It removes applause, distraction, comfort, until you discover what truly sustains you. Not bread, not proof, not applause. Inner sufficiency, conviction, alignment. Fasting is prayer, not begging, but turning attention away from what is unwanted and dwelling in the desired state. Enter into your closet. Close the door. Withdraw from the senses. And dwell there in imagination until it feels natural, until it feels done, until your inner acceptance is stronger than outer contradiction. After the wilderness, ministry began. After the fast, power flowed. Not because conditions changed first, but because identity did. When identity stabilized, authority followed. To bring about change, you must fast from the old self. Deny it attention. Deny it reaction. Deny it belief. Starve it and feed the new state with conviction. Feed it with inner speech. Feed it with sustained assumption. For whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose shall be loosed. Binding and loosing begins within. 40 days is not a number. It is persistence. It is the period where nothing visible confirms you, yet you remain unmoved. Where stones still look like stones, yet you refuse to call them final. Where the desert still feels empty, yet you dwell in fullness. That is fasting. Not from food, but from fear. Not from bread, but from the old self. Because whatever you refuse to feed must die, and whatever you nourish must live. You are always starving something and feeding something else. The question is, what state are you sustaining? What word are you living by? And when the wilderness comes, will you bow to what you see, or remain faithful to what you know within? And transformation is never comfortable. It feels like loss before it feels like gain. It feels like silence before it feels like clarity. Because when you stop feeding the old state, there is a moment of emptiness. No confirmation, no visible shift, only stillness. And in that stillness, the old identity begins to starve. It will protest. It will tempt you to react. It will ask again, if you are changing, why does nothing look different? If you are growing, why does it still feel difficult? But this is the final test. Will you measure truth by appearances? Or will you remain anchored within? Because the wilderness is not proof of absence. It is proof of transition. It is the space between who you were and who you are becoming. Most abandon the fast too early. They return to reaction, return to fear, return to feeding the very state they intended to leave behind. But those who endure emerge grounded, stable, unmoved by appearances. And when that stability forms, the outer world reflects it, not because you forced it, but because you stopped interfering. You stopped asking for signs. You stopped bowing to evidence. And instead, you lived by the word within. That is the real fast. That is the wilderness. That is the transformation. And understand this clearly. The wilderness will come to every man, not always as a desert of sand, but as silence, as uncertainty, as the stripping away of what once felt secure. In that moment, you will be tempted to return to what is familiar, to feed fear, to consult appearances, to measure your worth by what you can see. But the fast is this: to remain unmoved, to refuse to let conditions define identity, to choose the unseen word within over the visible world without. Because the one who conquers himself in the wilderness cannot be ruled by the world outside it. And when the fast is complete, you will not need to announce it. Your stability will speak. Your presence will speak. Your life will speak.